Hello, Jade.
Hi there, how are you?
Good. How are you? How you feeling? Weather's nice.
Such a lovely day. What am I doing in a room?
Yeah. No, I know. I know. I'm sorry. I mean, hopefully, yesterday was actually not as lovely. We could have done yesterday, I guess, as well, but that's fine. Uh, I mean, people will go out with the memory of Queen Berenice or the lack of thereof because she sounds she sounds like a sycophantic um, person as well. So it's interesting. I guess you'll tell us about it, but it's such an interesting character. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
she's not a perfect person. She was a collaborator, but she did try to save lives. And although she didn't succeed, she had quite a life herself.
right. So yeah, it's interesting. But then again, you know, once you're forced to marry your brother who's twice your age, it's just
Well, she made up with it with Titus because he was 11 years younger.
right, right, correct. It doesn't sound the same story as with Cleopatra. Didn't she supposed to marry her brother as well? Or maybe I'm mistaken. Who
Oh,
is
no,
like,
you're not, because all of the pharaohs were supposed to be married to their sisters.
okay, yeah. Oh, interesting. Sounds like you know some of those interesting communities, but it's interesting. Prior to that, in Egyptian history with pharaohs, um, and they found a lot of the. And again, this might be this might not be genetically proven, but they did find a lot of the DNA evidence and examining the bones that there was a lot of deformities in pharaohs like Tutankhamun, and because of the fact that they all intermarry within the family to keep it with the family, but a lot of the pharaohs would completely had a lot of I'm sure mental and physical deformities because of the same blood type of thing.
Well, I'll be able to tell you more about it when I get back from Egypt in May. But the pharaohs also they had concubines and so forth, and so the person who became the pharaoh wasn't necessarily the product of the brother sister incest.
Right, right. And then again, you have somebody like Ramses, who was actually called a royal bull, who had over 80 children and 40 wives. And so I don't think for him, it was a sport more than anything. So, and the guy was the first PR manager, of his time, losing a battle of Kadesh, coming back and totally turning it around and saying that, oh, I won. And I mean, who would have thought the first PR manager, and then also on one of the temples, he inscribes the fact that he won. And it's interesting. I was in Turkey, and um, I mean, the Kadesh was the first peace agreement that was ever stricken that UN owns. I'm sure there was other ones, but that's the one mostly publicly, announced, or so to speak. And it's written in three different languages, and one of the Akkadian versions is in Istanbul Museum of Archaeology, and I took a picture right next to it too, and
Mm.
it, and it's interesting. Also Hittites saying they won, but they all had a peace agreement. So if you won and the other guys won, then why do they need a peace agreement?
Well, I think the Hittites actually hid the peace agreement. And so I read at least one account that says that they may have lost the war or the battle or something like that. So there's a little division about that, but I think most of the sources are on your side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's interesting that every so you had let's say five or six, let's call them legions, right? And they were all named after a certain god. So there could be a god of Amun, god of Seth or whatever. And so all these legions, there was only two that arrived to the battle in time. The rest were behind. So you couldn't have won the battle against the formidable foe like Hittites with only two, let's just call it, legions or cohort, whatever you could call it. And so for him to declare, and it's actually, he took a scribe with him. So the guy wrote a pretty, detailed, and detailed battle of what happened and how it happened. And also we have a Hittite story. So, I'm sure, and, even though Hittite as a empire did not survive, and we really don't know where they went, how it disappeared. People presumably saying that they left on their own, and they just found burns in their capital, Hattusili, and there was no. They don't know where the Hittites went, but the Hittite language is first Indo-European language, Indo-European language ever preserved. And in fact, when they were trying to translate it, they actually used, Latin to translate a language from 3,000 years ago. So it's interesting because it sounded kind of, similar type of thing. So
That's fascinating.
so today, we have Jane. Jane has been kind enough to once a month, present powerful women of ancient and and maybe at some point a powerful modern times. We'll see how it goes. Maybe somebody like Golden Mayer or Margaret Thatcher. I don't know how she feels about that. But right now. So now we're talking about somebody who has been over 2,000 years ago. So the right pronunciation, Queen Berenice, right? Berenice, or how do you
Bernice. Bernice.
Bernice, yeah. So just think of yourself, um, Seleucid Empire, uh, Ptolemy, who were the Diadoches or the generals of Alexander the Great that divided the empire. So Berenice lived around those times. Interestingly enough, and I think Jane is going to get to that. She did not speak. Uh, she did not speak Egyptian. She spoke Greek at that time. The Greek had been spoken from all the way from Macedon or Greece, all the way to basically Hindu Kush. In fact, if you would take an early version of the Torah, called Jewish Bible, they were quite extensively translated into Greece, and a lot of the Jewish names, um, the name of the babies were given instead of biblical names. They were given, names like Cassander, Alexander, and so you can see the culture intertwined. And obviously, we're talking about around the same time, Maccabees revolt and Judea, the Maccabees revolt. So that's just move yourself to those times. Basically, just wanted to kind of give a little background. So just to give you a little bit of synopsis, today we're going to talk about Queen Berenice. We in on 4/7, Good Friday, we're going to talk about the secret of Aramaic language. This Wednesday, Richard is going to present the history of Oman. If you know, Oman used to actually, interestingly enough, be a Oman empire, and in Africa, particularly some of the African nations have a lot of the culture from Oman. And then Richard is going to hiatus for Passover for 3-4 weeks. But in the meantime, we do have a lot of the programs like philosophy. We have Indian philosophy, Asian philosophy. Like I said, Aramaic language. Next month, we're going to talk about. I was supposed to do a presentation yesterday, but something came up and moved it to April 29th. We're going to talk about the life of Mesopotamia. It was never a single region, but we're going to talk about particularly a life of one person. He was a priest that died 3,000 years ago and left a lot of the inscriptions. His name was Utu, and we're going to talk about the Lavash, the city that you live next to, and the culture and how people lived and what they drank, ate, who were their neighbors and stuff like that. So we'll immerse ourselves to 3,000 years ago, something like that.